Hi, everyone. My name is Sienna. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a retention specialist at the AAC, and this is the STEM Classic Thrive-Grad Senior Seminar Graduate School Student Panel. We have a few folks here who are currently and in the process of starting graduate school. And so we have folks who will be sharing a little bit about their story. We're going to have a conversation about their experience with the process, their experience now in graduate school, things that were helpful for them in their process, things that they would recommend for students who are looking at graduate school. So we really hope that this is a helpful process for folks to kind of get an idea of maybe some of the questions you've been asking yourself and are still working through. And so I'm going to go ahead and have folks introduce themselves just with your name, pronouns, and then what program you are attending or planning to attend, and then we'll jump on to slides after everyone introduces themselves. I'm going to go ahead and just call on folks if that's okay, in the order that I see here in the visual. So Nicolette, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, thanks, Sienna. So my name is Nicolette Pierman, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'll be starting a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering program in the East Coast in the fall.
Thank you. Colette?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, y'all. Colette, she, her, hers. I am a first-year student in the Student Affairs and Higher Education program here at Colorado State University.
Thank you. Sonia?
Hey everyone, Sonia, she, her pronouns, also in the also a first-year student in the Student Affairs and Higher Education Master's program here at CSU.
Thank you. And then Sarah.
Hi everyone, Sarah, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm currently about to finish my Master's of Educational Leadership at Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, which is located in Central PA. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into having folks talk a little bit about their journey first before we jump on into some questions for folks to answer. So I'm just going to go through the order of the slides here, and I welcome folks for other participants or folks who are here doing the panel. If you want to jump in and ask any questions for the person who's presenting, I feel free to use this as well for an opportunity to engage a little bit more with each other. We're not going to go over this. Yeah, go ahead and start us off.
Cool. So, this is me. Let's see, pronouns she, her, hers, university and career program, Student Affairs and Higher Education, CSU, first-year student, first-year candidate. I got my undergrad here at CSU in Communication Studies with a BA minor. My favorite meme is Hide the Pain Herald. I don't know how many times I've had to use this in our cohort. Every single day, for every single class, for every single experience. I guess I can kind of start with my undergrad and the fact that I absolutely did not want to go back to school. I was done writing papers. I was done seeing A's, B's, C's, and D's. I was done being graded like that. I was done having the stresses of assignments and going to class. I just wanted some freedom away from all that. But one of my student roles was actually working for a group on campus called Students Engaging and Enhancing Dialogue Seed. It was created by a previous Thrive-Grad who fostered a very holistic, very active relationship with concepts of social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And she is the one who planted that spark and gave me the language to understand what I wanted to do, which was social justice work and being an activist. But I didn't understand where I wanted to go, how I wanted to do that, or how I wanted to sustain that post-graduation. So I graduated, which was awesome. It was in person too, so sorry if you had to do your graduation not in person. I'm sorry. But after I graduated, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know where to go. But a supervisor and a mentor in a previous undergrad role from the Office of International Programs actually brought me back to work as a program coordinator for their international initiatives. And she connected me with a lot of past SAHI faculty and staff who walked me through what their experience was. And I was talking to folks who were everywhere from like 10 years back to 20 years back to 2 years back. So I had a really clear picture about how the SAHI program developed here at CSU, and also some of the challenges that come with being in the program, with the salient identities I held and also the ones that I didn't hold. And I think that solidified that I at least wanted to give it a try applying to grad school. So I wrote my letters, I found folks to speak for me and write letters of recommendation. I found that I almost wanted to talk too much about myself in the application process, but like refining it is part of the challenge in applying to grad school, and we can talk about that. And then this picture right down there on the bottom right is my interview days group. Some of our cohort members are actually in there. So there's John on the left, Aaliyah there in the center, there's Ezzy and Jose, and then me with the upside down smiley face. Because that was 2 straight days, 48 hours of just the most intense stuff. You will, Sonia, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it was ridiculous. It was literally a gauntlet. But I think made it through, obviously, because I'm here. But I think something about the interview process that I didn't expect is that everyone that you meet ends up being your colleague, and you will see each other in some form again. And that was really cool in how we managed to foster community. And now we're here. We got to our fall semester being completely virtual, which I didn't expect. Sonia, I don't know if you wanted to start the SAHI program virtual, but I sure did not. We wanted the residential experience. We wanted everything it meant to be here and be present, especially in student affairs, which is like a really relational field. It's been kind of hard trying to figure out how to navigate building community with people and building those relationships, but we're here and we're doing it, and it's an experience I won't regret or regret experiencing. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Colette. We're gonna go ahead and have, like, if anyone wants to add anything in response to anything that Colette said in the space. I know, Sonia, you're invited to share anything that you want. So feel free if you want to, or if you want to just wait a little bit, it's up to you. Any questions other folks have? Okay, we'll go ahead and shift the, let's see, to Nicolette, and then we'll go ahead and keep moving forward in this way.
Awesome, thanks, Sienna. So my name's Nicolette again, pronouns she, her, hers. I'll be starting graduate school in the fall at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. I am not ready for the cold, but I'm really excited to go out of state for graduate school. The program that I'll be doing is a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering with a concentration in environmental, water, and coastal systems. That's a mouthful. I essentially just want to work with soil and water in a cool way. And I enrolled yesterday, so I'm really excited. It's like official. My package is going to be coming soon from financial aid, so I'm really excited. Then I graduated from CSU with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering roughly 2 years ago. And now to talk a little bit about how I'm getting here and got here. I entered CSU and I knew right away that I wanted to get a master's and a PhD. I just didn't have a sense of like what that looks like. So I spent most of my time at CSU trying to figure out the details of what that means, what I should be looking for. And it was sometimes like really disheartening and like saddening because everybody around me was just like, I just want to get this degree. I want to leave. Like most people, when I told them I wanted to go to grad school, they were just like, good luck. And I was like, oh, that's great. And it was a lot of my peers that just was communicating with that with me. My academic advisor really wasn't too helpful about it either, but I took the time to intentionally like find the professors that really believed in my ability to go to graduate school, and we just talked about it. I really learned a lot about myself and my love for soils and waters just by having conversations with folks, and that built up to me figuring out where I wanted to apply to, the specific programs I was looking for, the specific type of courses I was looking for. So if one of my biggest pieces of advice is definitely just talk it out with people that really are invested in your success, because I made a lot of momentum with just getting to graduate school just by talking to folks. And I didn't start talking to folks until my senior year. So I struggled pretty much for like 3 years leading up to that, when I could just talk it out with folks and accelerated the process. I'm really excited for the classes because I didn't get a lot of the classes I'm looking for in my undergraduate career. So I'm really looking forward to just doing classes that I love all the time. And I actually applied to all the schools that I did, intending to start fall 2020. So I deferred my enrollment for a year because I knew that it didn't feel right to me to start in a pandemic in a virtual setting, because I knew that would just be too difficult for me. And a big component of the master's program is a lot of laboratory work. So I wouldn't be getting the most out of my experience. So I had to make that hard decision to defer a year. And it was a really hard one to make, but I knew it would be difficult for me to do online schooling. I wouldn't be able to do the research that I want to do because we just wouldn't have access to it. But overall, I'm just really excited to start and looking forward to talking more about it.
Thanks, Nicola. I think you and Kala have already kind of mentioned a few things that we're going to talk about in terms of like what helped you and why did you decide to attend. So thank you for sharing. We're going to go ahead and pass it on over to Sonia.
All right. So again, Sonia, she, her, yeah, pronouns. So I did my undergrad. I majored in biology and biomedical science. So I was a STEM major in undergrad, and I was with the intent of going to medical school or PA school. I wasn't really sure at the time. Like Nicolette mentioned, like my advisors were kind of just like, like they really didn't provide much support. When it came to like, I knew I wanted to go to professional school. I didn't really know how to, or what. I was a first generation student. So like my parents never, I didn't have these experiences, and I really didn't know what to do. And so I actually did 5 years of undergrad, because that 5th year, it was like my 4th year. I could have graduated on time. I just didn't, because I was just really unsure of like what I was doing. I was just really scared of graduating and like not knowing what was next for me. And so I was just not ready to take that step. And I took an extra year. And honestly, like my 5th year of undergrad was my best year. It was the year that I got to explore a lot more, because classes were a lot more spread out since I was pretty much done. I got to write my honors thesis during that time, and just got to explore a lot more. And so when I realized that, med school and PA school just weren't going to work out for me, I started to think about like what experiences in undergrad really kind of shaped who I was. And I was a part of the Career Center, and I really helped out students in that sense. Just with like resumes, covers, letters, whatever, for walk-ins for students. And one of my mentors in the Career Center really asked me like, hey, well, what about student affairs? Like, you love working with students, you love supporting students. My roles in my other student orgs and the leadership roles that I took, I also really loved like that mentoring role. We did a lot of things with high school students. So I loved like that high school to college kind of access and helping those students navigate that as well. And so I decided to apply to CSU's SAHI program. I really didn't expect me to be in student affairs, or like this is where I would end up, but I was really, really thankful and I'm really excited. This program has been ridiculously hard sometimes, and I know Colette like can attest to that. But and yeah, like she was saying, the interview process was really, really, really intense, which isn't as much as I've heard from other programs. So again, it just depends by school. But there's some of my, like, we have one of those pictures like right under where I graduated. I actually did graduate during the pandemic, which really sucked because I didn't get an an in-person ceremony, but I still got to share it with my parents, which was really special. But right under that, it's all of our cohort in class. Half of us are like on screen and then the other half are in person. And that was like our last in-person class. But honestly, I think, like others have already mentioned, but really finding what your passions are, and that it doesn't have to be directly correlated to what you did in undergrad. That was one of the biggest things. I was like, I have to do something in STEM for my graduate degree. Like that's just, that's what I did. Like, why am I going to go do something else? But this is a time where like you can definitely change courses and find yourself in other ways. And I'm very, very, very happy that I did that. And I know that I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now. But yeah, it's a little bit more about me.
Thank you for sharing that, Sonia, specifically how you like pivoted a little bit from like STEM to a different field for graduate school. And I think that that's a big thing that a lot of our students have shared in terms of feeling nervous about what is that next linear step within my field. And it's not always that way. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here. Awesome. So moving right along, now, Sarah, you want to go ahead and get started?
Hi, everyone. Sarah, she, her, hers pronouns. So I actually have no connection with CSU other than being a graduate student intern. So it's kind of interesting to give an outside perspective. A bit of background, my grad program is College Student Affairs, similar to what Colette and Sonia are in. It's a Master's of Educational Leadership. But my undergrad was actually in government and political affairs. I really thought that going to law school was the thing that I wanted to do. And I kind of woke up one day and said, that's not what I want to do. And so I actually took 2 years off before going back to school. Because I rushed into undergrad. I moved across the country. I was born and raised in California, and I moved to Pennsylvania because I had some family in the area, and it seemed like the thing to do. And then I learned about out-of-state tuition and all of these loans and the interest that, like all this grown-up stuff that I don't want to get into because it'll stress me out, it'll stress you out. No one wants to talk about it. But I learned a lot from that experience because I was a first gen as well. I knew nothing. My mom didn't know anything. And so I took 2 years off and really thought about what I wanted to do, because then I decided I didn't want to go to law school. I didn't want to do what everyone was telling me I should do just because of money. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to focus on what was in my heart, like how Nicolette was saying that she really wanted to do this science, this STEM program, and good for you, girl. I'm not STEM, Sonia, props to both of you, because, but needless to say, taking a break, there's nothing wrong with that if you're trying to figure out what you want to do. I'm really glad I did. I got some experience working in higher education before I decided that that's what I wanted to do. Which was really good. And I can always call on that experience through my graduate career and beyond. And here I have some pictures with our mascot, super fun. But on the left is a picture of our cohort that I'm in. And then on the right is a picture of some of the students that I actually supervise. Altogether, I supervised about 65 students at one time. So it was really hectic pre-COVID. It was still hectic during COVID, but face-to-face, everything's going on. But not to say that, yeah, we're having fun, we're enjoying it, but it's also a lot of research. You really want to make sure that you're moving forward in your career, right? So I wanted to provide a picture of me doing a presentation at a conference, because no matter what you're doing, you want to try and move forward and show others what you're learning and what you're practicing, and what you ultimately want to do after graduation, because graduation is just one step, right? You have other steps. So don't be intimidated. Don't freak out. It's exciting. It's fun. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it more after this. So back to you.
Thank you, Sarah. What I'm going to do now is just close out this presentation slide so that we can go ahead and kind of use this to guide folks who are coming in and checking out this recording. So I'm going to pose like questions here that come up in this conversation with the folks here in this space, just to give folks an idea of like what are the conversations that we're having for folks who are engaging with this video later on. So I have a few, and I think you all have kind of touched on them here and there, but I also invite you all to engage with each other and ask questions about like the stories that you shared already, just so that if you are pretend that you're seeing this as an undergrad student, like what are things that you wanted to know during your process. So I guess I want to start off with like, why did you decide to attend graduate school? And I know, again, folks kind of already touched on this, but if folks want to add a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and post it, and then feel free to jump right in.
I can go first. So I decided to attend grad school, one, because I really couldn't get any jobs with a bachelor's in higher education or move up in the food chain, essentially. So I wanted to do that, but I also wanted to promote my own learning. Colette talked about this, about having a huge interest in social justice. And that's something that I wanted to dive into more as well, because in government, in my background, you talk about like the laws, but not all laws are just. And so I wanted to learn more about how we can actually support our students when those laws aren't just necessarily in a higher education setting. But also, I struggled through college. It wasn't necessarily always easy, just because I was a first gen and I didn't know how to get involved. I didn't know the proper study skills. High school was relatively easy for me. And then I got to college and I was like, oh, I have to actually study, where I didn't have to do that as much in high school. So then when I decided to go to grad school, I wanted to learn how to help these students and help them avoid the mistakes that I made in undergrad. So yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anyone else want to jump in and add anything else? Why they decided to attend graduate school?
I think for me, it was that it was just gonna give me like a better foundation on what it is that I wanted to do or where I was at the moment. Like my last year of college, it was relatively easy, like academically, but I think, going through a pandemic and having events canceled and graduation canceled, and I know it's going to be for a lot of folks for this year too. It was just like, it was a really hard time for me. And so I think actually deciding to go through with it and go into higher ed, it was just to continue, one, like Sarah said, like continue my learning and continue to become more knowledgeable. And also to start like also creating like a sense of community for myself. I definitely did that in undergrad, but it's kind of those things that kind of like stay in undergrad once you leave. And so I wanted to continue to learn and grow more with myself and learn more about myself and where it was that I wanted to be. And I think that for me, undergrad was actually relatively easy as well. Like my time management was very bad. I should have attended some of those AAC workshops on time management, but I definitely, like, I was a procrastinator, but like overall, I think it was relatively okay and it was easy. But grad school has challenged me in ways that I have never like been challenged. I came from a major where, you sat 50 minutes 3 times a week per class, you took notes and you took a quiz, you took an exam, and you regurgitate all that information. And I think specifically Sahi and probably other grad programs are so much more than that. Sahi is really like, who cares about the grade? I have classes where we give our own grades, you know? So like we just talk to the professor and like, here's the grade I think I deserve. So it's so much different. I'm starting to learn to like not connect so much to the GPA because I was very GPA oriented. I wanted to go to med school. I needed the best grades, the best GPA. And so I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning to unlearn a lot of things. And so I think that's why I wanted to attend graduate school. It was so that I could learn so much more about myself, about, you know, in this case, student affairs, and like others have mentioned, like social justice, diversity, inclusion, that's very ingrained into our program. And so learning how to apply that into a professional setting was something that I was really interested in.
Thank you, Sonia. Anyone else want to share anything? And I can also just post our next question if folks are ready as well. Awesome. I got a thumbs up. Okay. Nicola, did you want to share? I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I could share a little bit. So as I shared before, I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school going into college. And the reason being is it started in high school. I knew that I had a passion for like the environment and supporting it, since I've just seen just through observation, like the care for the planet is not there how I would like it to be. And being first generation as well, I was just like, well, go big or go home, like get a PhD. So it was just really obvious to me. So more of the concrete reasoning came as I went through undergrad. So one of the big things for me is that I love to learn, as y'all have mentioned, but also the work that I want to do, I want to make sure it's intentionally impacting folks that really need it, because the thought of just building cool looking bridges or like a new building for folks that don't really need it was not appealing to me. I just felt like it would be wasting my time and energy to do so. So I want to go to graduate school so I could become more knowledgeable to help marginalized and underrepresented communities, both internationally and domestically, with the research I do, because until those communities and identities and populations are at the same footing as we are in the US and other first world countries, I will like never feel satisfied. So I want to intentionally put my energy where it's really needed.
Thank you, Nicolette. Well, thank you all for sharing for that first question. I have another prompt here for folks who, oops, not sure why that turned that color. So what are some things that you did or things during your undergrad that helped you in the process of applying and starting to think about graduate school? I know some folks alluded to some of those things as they were sharing a little bit about themselves. What are like some of those things that really helped you get that going, start thinking about it, and just go through the application?
I can pop in on this one. I think I'll focus on this first idea, which I know was echoed a lot at us as SAHI candidates, but is also currently echoed at the interview days candidates we just had roll through, is really understand your why. Like why graduate school? Like, why do you want to be here? Why the specific program in the specific state? What about it appeals to you? What about you and your experiences and what you've been through? Like, how does that show up? How can it show up? What does it mean for what you want to practice when you actually get into the program? I think it's really crucial, especially in going through your interview, is like just so important. I'm not sure if that's the same for more like science-based programs compared to STEM, or I'm sorry, compared to SciHe, but definitely honing in on your why. Also too, I think we all actually just did a experiment in class about this, but I underestimated how many people were observing what it was I was doing as an undergrad. And something, especially when you're looking for folks to write letters of recommendation for you, really talk to people you know, because even if they might not have the capacity to write those letters for you, they might be able to know folks who have or who can show up for you in that kind of way. For Sahi, I know we needed one letter of rec from a professor, and I did not think I was going to get a single communication studies professor, but all it took was just going up after class, having a conversation, and kind of walking the instructor through like what I needed, and she wrote the letter for me, which was awesome. So I think more folks will step up for you than you think. You just have to have the conversation in the first place.
Thank you, Colette. Anyone else want to add on to this question?
Yeah, I think for me, I also was working in the career center at the time, so it was a little bit easier for me to get like my foot in the door, but definitely like take advantage of, we are all at CSU, so the career center. It's in the basement of the LSC, and it's a really great resource for folks who are kind of still kind of lost in the whole process and just not yet sure of like what they want to do. It's a great place to just have those starting conversations of like, I don't know, this is kind of what I want to do, but I don't know if I can. They'll help you look through programs and help you kind of get started. Also take advantage of all of the coordinators here at AAC, right? Like I know Galet was, for me, one of the main reasons I decided to go through with going into grad school, because he was like, no, like you can do it. Like we'll help you through it. If you need anything, if you need a letter of rec, all of these things were made possible because of the connections that I had made on campus. And so I think kind of like Colette had mentioned, I almost wrote a list, I think, when it was time for me to apply, of everyone that I knew on campus, everyone that could possibly write me a letter of rec on campus. For me, it was somebody that worked with me. It was one of my supervisors, and then it was two mentors from the community. One of them ended up being a professor, so it worked out. Always make sure you at least have one professor, because no matter what the degree program is, they'll usually at least ask for one professor's letter of rec. And know that the professor doesn't have to be necessarily in your major of study. For example, like my professor's letter of rec was actually in the ethnic studies department. I had taken two ethnic studies classes with this professor, and I was like, hey, I really need a letter of rec from a professor. Can you write it? We had developed a relationship over the years, and so it was pretty easy to ask. So I would just recommend like going into office hours and start creating those connections with at least one professor would be ideal. And I also applied to a STEM program, and the whole why purpose is also very prominent. Like I think a little bit less intentional, but definitely there's still a purpose statement, and you have to know like, why do you think you fit in this program? Why is this program the best fit for you? So definitely once you start looking through those programs that you want to apply to, start thinking like, why do I fit here? Why do I think this program is a good fit for me? And start definitely listing those out. I think the last thing is don't procrastinate on the deadlines. Again, I am very poor with my time management, and I applied to the Sahi program, I think the day it was due, and like 2 hours before the deadline. I pushed submit like 2 hours. Yes, Colette, that was me. 2 hours before the deadline. So I was just so unsure, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, Nicolette, yes, that emoji was literally me. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I literally wrote the essay the day of, and I turned it in that day. And so like I had all my other materials, like, hey, it worked out. But definitely don't do that. Take their time. It's much less stressful when you actually do just sit back and do it step by step, so that in case you have problems, in case the essay question might be really difficult and you need a little bit more time to write it, that you have the time to go to the writing center or just talk to one of your mentors, a friend, to kind of read over your essays and stuff. And yeah, I think that's my advice. Just don't procrastinate.
Thank you, Sonia. Great thing to hear from folks too. Lessons learned. Anyone else want to add on to this second question? Okay. Are you all good if I post another one? Okay. The last one before you all can like just engage with each other and prompt questions here too is, I think you all have kind of alluded to some of this already. Sorry, it's popping up in different font and colors. Is like, what is one tip you have for current undergrad students who are looking to attend graduate school at some point after graduation? So something maybe that you haven't mentioned, something that you really reflected on after you applied for graduate school.
So something that I still battle with today is something called imposter syndrome. So thinking that I'm not good enough to go on and try this new thing, or that I'm not smart enough. All these different emotions kind of going through my head. And so being a first gen and knowing that I wasn't necessarily really ready for undergrad at my first 2 years, I was very hesitant at first to go to grad school, thinking that I wasn't going to live up to the standards and be smart enough for it. And so I guess my one tip would be to believe in yourself. And that's definitely harder to do than to say. But to have those conversations with yourself and say, like, you know, I am worth it. I am smart enough to go to this institution. I am smart enough to do those classes, take those exams, whatever it is. You need to tell yourself that you are able to do it, and that it will be worth it in the end. Because I definitely had a support system that helped me through it, which I'm so thankful for my support system, and they helped me realize that I was able to do this. But for someone that, as well, as Sonia said, unsure about like grad school in the first place, I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be literally 3-4 months away from graduating. And I'm so glad that I had that talk with others and myself to say, like, you know, you're worth it. You're smart enough to do this. You can do this. And now I have more doors that have opened for me. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
I would say one of my tips or like pieces of advice, again, like Sarah mentioned, is easier said than done, but have some kindness and your grace with yourself throughout this process. Like, no, even if you're really futuristic and a planner, it's okay if everything doesn't fall into place right away. Just know that it will. I am heavily a planner and futuristic thinker. I wanted to be in graduate school right after I graduated, and I ended up taking 2 gap years, and it was some of the best years of my life. Like, I was able to apply to graduate schools and have quality applications, study for the GRE, and take it and raise my scores. So just know it's okay if everything doesn't work out right away. It definitely will over time.
Thank you, Nicolette. Anything or that anyone wants to add, or any questions now that folks in this panel want to just like pose for this group?
I don't know. I mean, Nicola, if you want to speak to like the interview experience a little bit and cohort models, or something you're even looking forward to. But for me, Sonia, and Sarah, what's it like having a cohort? What's it like having to navigate that virtually? And maybe what's one thing you look forward to actually being in person with your cohort, even if it's to celebrate the fact that you celebrate graduating? Sarah.
Okay, Colette. I feel called out. So my cohort is, oh my gosh, we're about 15 to 20 folks. And so what I like about that is it's like a large family. So you have your close friends, but you rely on a bunch of people to connect and network with as well. And you talk about your experiences and you say like, I'm dealing with this right now. Do you have any suggestions on how I handle this in the future, or things of the sort? And what I like about the program that I'm in is that it's so focused on that connection and building that relationship. So that's kind of like what my experience is in a cohort program. We rely on each other, we study with each other, we have movie nights, that sort of thing. So like one big family. And then in terms of graduating, I can't sugarcoat it. I'm nervous. It's spring 2021 and I'm about to leave my safe haven of a home for the past 2 years and I have no idea what the future holds. I'm nervous. And if you are nervous about making the jump to go to grad school and then you're nervous about a job, you kind of have to do the Sarah method and just tell yourself it's going to be okay. It is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. And yes, I'm calling it the Sarah method. But that's what I have to tell myself. That's like my mantra every day when I'm applying to a new job is something will happen. It is what it is. I can't really like go knock on a bunch of people's doors and say like, please hire me, even though I really want to at times. So just don't freak out. Like it will be okay when it comes to that process. Something that's really awesome is that I have a cohort, and hopefully you will too, when you go into a grad program, that you can lean on, because they're going to be in the same struggles as you, and you have faculty and other coordinators that are going to be able to help you and act as references and guide you through the entire process. So that's been extremely helpful as well. So use all of your resources. I did not do that as much in my first 2 years of undergrad, and now in grad school, I'm just like snatching all of it up. Like, give me this information. I want to learn this. Will you help me with this? So use all of your resources.
I think for me, so our cohort is 13 folks. So we have a really, really tiny cohort, which is really great. And I think like one of the things, I think when I learned that I really loved my cohort was when no matter what groups we get put into for assignments, if they're randomly assigned, I really enjoy working with everyone, no matter who it is. Whereas like in undergrad, I dreaded group projects and group assignments because one, either really don't know the people in your group, or it's just really hard to connect. But all of the folks in our cohort they're really amazing. I think it has been challenging though. I think starting a cohort online, the one like in class experience was last semester, and even then like half of the folks were sometimes online through Zoom, and then the other half were in class, and we were 6 feet apart. And even when we were supposed to have like small group discussions, it was all online, which was really weird because we were literally right next to each other, but we were typing on the computer. So it was just like not ideal. And so I think it definitely has been difficult starting to like try to foster community in all online settings, because most folks, like I did not get to meet in person during my interview days. We met like about half and half. And so I think it's been a little bit difficult, especially when you're kind of already established in Fort Collins, if I'm being honest. I think my experience as already having a community at CSU and in Fort Collins was that it was almost harder to make community with folks who were coming from out of state, because they kind of connected on like, oh, well, this is new. This is a new place. This is new for me. You guys are kind of all I have. So we have a lot of out of state folks that like that cohort and that assistantship is pretty much all they know. And so it's hard sometimes to connect to some folks when you have, you're living with your partner and you're already like settled and you already like have roots in Fort Collins. And also, like with varying degrees of being high risk or, not being able to actually, even with distancing and stuff, it's really not safe for a lot of folks to hang out right now. And so it's not like we can't have movie nights for all of the cohort, or we can't all hang out. And so you definitely see like little pockets forming, and that's natural. And you're going to definitely like find really close friends in your cohort. You're not going to be best friends with everyone. And I think it's really important for there not to be like that idea, I think, that everyone's going to be your best friend. You're definitely going to love everyone and have a lot of fun working with each other and collaborating on projects and stuff, but also know that like you'll find probably pockets and where you fit the best, if I'm being honest. But I loved the cohort program and the cohort model, and I'm very happy that I chose a program that had the cohort model, because then I take all of my classes with the same folks every single time except for electives. But everyone, like I already know their experiences that they've shared in class, and so it's a lot easier to connect with people. But yeah.
Thank you, Sonia. Does anyone else want to like prompt any questions? I think a big question that comes up for students, if folks don't have any other questions, is like funding, as well as like a big scary thing for folks. Something if folks want to chime in, or if folks have any other prompts or questions for the group.
I can chime in about funding. At CSU, we do get tuition remission on top of stipends for our assistantships, because this program is based off of a heavy like practicum component and practice, like just going out there and getting experience. That's where assistantships come in. So our funds for existing and living and eating and getting to continue breathing oxygen comes from that. The tuition remission is really helpful. We still have to pay student fees, but if you are a Colorado resident, you do get a Colorado grant, which I think right now is about $1,500 per semester, which helps cover student fees, which is really, really helpful. Because usually students will, in this program, will find that like their first paycheck is like taken up mostly by student fees. It's a little unfortunate, but that definitely helped at least me solidify why I wanted to be here. I see Sonia nodding, so yeah, money. But yeah, that's where I would get that. I know for summer, since that's coming up and we're all kind of thinking about what that will mean for us, not every opportunity you're going to get is going to be paid, but there are still a lot of opportunities out there in this program to make money over the summer and still fulfill your requirements and get some experience. So
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to add about funding?
Yeah, I think like with that, I had like the privilege of not having to pay an undergrad. I got scholarships and, with Colorado State grants and institutional funds, I didn't have to take out any loans or anything of that sort for undergrad. And so I definitely didn't want to start now. And so I think for me, it was actually very important. And it was a huge part of like, am I going to be able to afford grad school? Am I going to be able to get any sort of financial aid? Because I cannot afford to pay out of pocket and I'm not going to get into debt. Like it was just the way I was thinking and the way I have always kind of thought about it. And so in choosing CSU, I think one of the main reasons, also I know this is like for STEM, a lot of STEM folks, but in higher education, there's a lot of programs that will pay for your tuition and that will pay for like stipends and assistantships and stuff so that you can like afford to live wherever it is that you go. And so I would do a lot of research, honestly. Like that's one of the other things that I recommend is just really do research on whatever it is the program that you're wanting to go into. I know when I was looking into STEM, I know I looked at like toxicology at CSU and microbiology masters. A lot of them didn't offer that unless you got a GRA, so a graduate research assistantship kind of thing. So if you were doing research with them, they would also kind of pay you and they would help you pay your tuition. And so they are out there for like all fields, I think, but it's a lot harder to find, I think, within the STEM field and STEM programs. But yeah, for me, it was like, I need to know that I'm going to be okay. And that I'm not going to like not be able to afford groceries because I have to pay student fees for August, And so for me and for a lot of, I think, folks when I interviewed was like, wait, so we are going to get paid for this, right? And it was a really important like topic for us because most of us either already had a bunch of debt and didn't want to continue to accrue debt, or didn't take out any loans and didn't want to start taking out loans. And again, if you do, like, that's an investment in your future and yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But know that there are programs out there that will help you not have to take loans or not take out as many loans. So.
Thank you, Sonia. I know we are coming close to the hour, but any last things that folks want to share here for students? Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing a little bit about your journey and your experience so far, and also like getting ready to attend graduate school, and that's all really exciting. We hope that this is like a really helpful piece for folks who are engaging with this later on throughout the semester. And hopefully these prompts and questions here can give you an idea of some of the conversations that we had. And please connect with your retention specialist if you have any like follow-up questions, any pieces of advice that folks share here. Please, yes, take all those things into consideration. There are a few graduate school resources that we have in our Thrive-Grad pages, both in Classic and in STEM. This video is for both STEM and Classic students in the AAC. And so please connect with us if you have any questions. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.